What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host. Today, being the Saturday sit-down edition of the podcast, we have Adam Grenda. He is up in Alaska, living the absolute life of an Alaskan that you could think of, just hunting, flying, loving on his family, making an amazing life for him, his wife, and his kids. You're going to love this conversation, guys. You also may know Adam as DICKBONE. He kind of started that joke. It's freaking hilarious and makes me laugh every time I think about it. So anyway, tune into this podcast. Enjoy this episode. I hope you do, because I sure enjoyed this conversation. Before we get into the conversation, though, I want to remind you, if you're listening to this before the end of December, get entered to win my Hoyt Alpha X33 full kit, quiver, new strings, Hoyt factory strings as well. You get the rest. You get a dozen arrows from Wild Arrow. You're going to get the Go Sticks 2.0. You're going to get so many. You're going to get a dialed Arxo sight on it as well, with my custom wrap with the Kryptek blaze, my logo, First Phorm Outdoors logo. All of that included. It costs nothing to get entered. Subscribe to the channel. Get entered in the link down below. If it's before the end of the year, I want to make someone's 2025 start off with a bang. So we'll be giving this away at the beginning of January, live on YouTube. If you want extra entries, if you're local to Utah, go to Wild Arrow. Every $20 spent at Wild Arrow gets you an extra entry. If you are not local and you want to support the show, every $10 spent on First Phorm using the link down below or on the landing page where you fill out your information will get you an extra entry every $10. So with that being said, let's get into this conversation now with Adam and talk about life in Alaska. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we have a fantastic guest for you guys. We've got Adam Grenda. Adam is up in Alaska, living the dream up in Alaska. He loves to hunt. Just had an amazing hunt, actually, a moose hunt, which I'm interested in hearing more about. But also, you might know him as the DICKBONE guy off of social media. I personally didn't realize that was a thing until I saw your stuff pop up. As far as bears go and how people use those for stirrers and all of that. I had no idea that that was a thing. So now that I do, I started following your stuff and getting to know who you were a little bit more. And he's a dad of 6 children and absolutely just, there's so many things about what you do, man, that I really appreciate. So I want to have you on the podcast for people to get to know you a little bit better, from my audience, as well as for me personally, selfishly, I want to get to know you a little bit better as well. So with that being said, Adam, for people that don't know who you are, who are you?
Thanks for the intro. I appreciate you having me on. Pretty big shoes to fill. I think I'm just a regular guy. I grew up in North Idaho. We're actually visiting North Idaho. I'm doing the podcast here right now at my in-laws' place. Kind of worked in Alaska since I was 17. I'm almost 35, middle-aged here pretty soon, as soon as I hit that 35 mark. And I was just drawn to Alaska. I think like everyone, it's the last frontier. You read about it in Cabela's magazines and Outdoor Life growing up. And I'm one of the few people in my circle and a lot of people that I know that actually capitalized on that. Said, I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to go to Alaska. And once I started getting my foot in the door, I kind of fell in love with aviation and airplanes. I said, man, I want to do this. There's good money, there's good job security, and I like doing it. And so I started flying a lot, built up a lot of hours, screwed up a lot of things, and learned how to hopefully not kill myself. And that's really essential in the flying aspect. And so I think when you take the fact that I learned to fly and then I moved to Alaska and then I bought an airplane and then I live in a pretty remote place where there's not a lot to do but hunt, I guess that draws a crowd.
No, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. So I didn't realize, so you're from North Idaho, so you didn't grow up in Alaska and you had that allure of moving up to Alaska. So I kind of want to talk to you about that a little bit. How did you were you married when you moved up there, I guess? And how did you convince your wife?
Well, I married a freaking unicorn, dude. That she used to live in Alaska before we met. She was going to school in Anchorage for air traffic control to work at like an ATC tower. I was really invested in flying, float planes mostly and stuff, in the fishing lodge business in Southwest Alaska. And so we met, and she had used to live in Alaska. I had spent every summer up there for the past 10, 11 years. And I said, man, this is the chick. And I said, I think on the first date I told her, I said, I'm moving to Alaska and I'm going to own a Super Cub before I own a house. When I say own, I might be making the payments to the bank, but I'm not going to have a house. I want a Super Cub before I have a house. And I know that's a very immature decision, but I can pay rent, but I can't hunt sheep and goats when I'm 60. Like, my body's just not going to work. So I want to do that stuff now, and I'm going to finance my dream airplane, and I'm going to fly the hell out of it. And she said, yeah, I'm down. And so I said, wow, this chick's pretty cool. And married her, and she moved up there. That's the hardest part, is finding a wife who wants to move. I hear guys all the time, oh, I'd love to do it. I'm so jealous. If only the wife. It's not that bad. I mean, there's times of darkness and cold, but the summer is so amazing. It makes up for it. The hunting is thousands of times better than what you guys will ever have down there. There's a lot less people. The weather's horrendous. The hunting's not technically hard. It's just the weather sucks, and it's hard logistically to get you and your stuff there. So I really don't think it's that big of a sell, but there's a lot of wives that draw the hard line in the sand that, like, nope, lower 48 and that's it. Never Alaska.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually we just went to Ketchikan, which I know is far south Alaska, but for the first time, my wife actually, I'd brought it up to her 2 years ago when my buddy went up salmon fishing, and she was like, yeah, my wife doesn't eat fish, so it really wasn't a draw for her, but it came up again this last year. I was like, hey, they're going up again with some other couples. Would you like to go? And she was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, oh, that was a little strange, but okay. And we went up there, and oh my gosh, like, I know it was different. The weather that we got this year was extremely rare. It was very dry, beautiful blue skies pretty much the entire time. And so it was just something that was, I guess, weird. They were saying that usually you're drenched while you're out there fishing and whatnot, but she loved it. It was beautiful sights, amazing weather, good fishing. Could have been better, I imagine, if it was cooler. But anyway, I just agree with you on that it's hard to find people that are willing to go, whether it's the spouse, or I even think sometimes it's got to do with the guy not putting out a good plan of, like, you were just straight up with her and said, hey, I'm getting a Super Cub and then a house. And she was like, okay, cool. I think the guys don't really have a good plan to tell their wives, hey, this is how we're going to live. We're going to take care of your needs, but my needs are going to be taken care of out in the wilderness, kind of deal.
Yeah, I used to work in Ketchikan. I flew there air taxi first summer, ran some offshore charters, and it rained 16 feet a year. 16 feet. And so to get blue skies and sun in Ketchikan really doesn't happen. It's like, if it's raining, you're just outside. That's just how it works. You have to get comfortable. So you got some really rare weather. And I agree. I also feel like a lot of guys are terrified inside, and they don't want to let that out, that it's hard to make the jump. It's hard to say, I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to go to Alaska and I'm going to figure it out. There's lots of work up here. There's tons of money. But I think a lot of guys are just too afraid to pull the trigger and make the jump. And so they live in the comfort zone down here. They got their 9 to 5. They go deer hunting a few weekends. And they're going to sit there and tell me, man, you're living my dream life. And when they're 70 on their deathbed, they're going to say, man, I should have made the jump. And I've never been that kind of person. I'm like, what's worst case happens?
Yeah.
Move back to Idaho and start over? Like, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it's not just Alaska that a lot of people say that, oh, you're living the dream life, or, oh man, I wish I could, blah, 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 you fill in the blank. I would agree with you. There's a lot of people that aren't willing to necessarily put in that work or create a plan or even have a clear vision of what they wanted or what they want. They just kind of look at something that's cool, like, again, your moose hunt recently, or the beauty of Alaska when it is a clear blue day, that kind of deal, and they say, man, that's awesome, but it's kind of almost like that 7-second attention span where they're like, oh, that's really cool, I'd love to do that, and then they move right back into their 9 to 5 or whatever it is that they have going on at home. So you really did find a unicorn, but also at the same time, you didn't just go up there selfishly. I mean, you've got 6 kids, man. Like, that's not easy. I have 5 of my own, so I definitely understand that. That should have set my alarm bells off that you are also LDS or Mormon, for people that don't know what LDS is. But what's really awesome is that you are living the outdoor life and also the dad life to the extreme of 6 kids. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that. I know you talk about it quite consistently on social media, but give people a little bit of a taste of what it is to be a dad of 6, and also how do you get your kids involved in the passions that you have for the outdoors.
Oh, geez, that's a tough one, dude. So yeah, I'm LDS, convert to the church, and as much practice as we tried, still can't have any babies. So we got into foster care, and there's a lot of kids in need in Western Alaska. Pretty pretty bad stuff happens in a lot of villages due to alcohol and drug abuse, neglect of their kids. And so we became foster parents, and my life turned from just pretty much being a selfish guy in his mid to late 20s, married to a super hot redhead, to boom, God said, here's 5 kids. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot. Like most guys freak out when they get one. Like, I'm going to be a dad, and like, okay, now I have 5. How's this going to work out? It's a very long process. We adopted them, which is crazy because if people can't tell from the video that I'm white, I am. And so that's difficult when you're a white guy to adopt native kids. There's a lot of federal law that prohibits that, and it's really difficult to do. But we got past that. I have one baby currently in foster care now, and I was bloodthirsty. My dad took me deer hunting, I think when I was 3 the first time, and after that it was like, you created a freaking monster, you know? It was like basically giving someone crystal meth one time, and it's like, okay, your life's over. You're addicted forever, you know? And that's how I was to hunting. And I was just bloodthirsty. Squirrels. I had a mouse trap line where I grew up when I was like 6 or 7. Got into trapping more so later into high school and stuff. Just really enthralled by that and the true mountain man badass guys. And that being said, like my kids aren't super bloodthirsty. Like they'll go, but they're just going because maybe it's something to do, you know? Maybe there's a pool party going on and they're really interested in that instead, you know? I would love for them to be like begging, like, Dad, I want to go for a super cub ride. Dad, let's go pick up moose shed. Dad, let's go shoot some ducks out of the airplane and trap some beavers. But it's not really like that. So I feel like being the best dad I can be is not pushing my passions to live vicariously through my kids. Like my son, he would way rather play basketball and play in a basketball game than go on a hunting trip. I'm guessing. I haven't really asked, but he loves basketball. So I want to encourage him, support him, watch Michael Jordan and Kobe videos because we're not LeBron fans in our house, and show him what real basketball players are, and just support him in that. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with all my kids. Some of them like to go, like my 2 oldest daughters, they like it. They like to eat caribou, they like to eat moose, they like hanging out with Dad, and they like to be the tough kid, you know? So that's a balancing act, I think, as a father.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And it's, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say horror stories, but a lot of dads that forced their kids into doing things that they didn't want to do, and it almost turns into
Yeah.
a hatred for it in the end. And I feel like what you're doing, I'd take a very similar approach of encourage the kids and what their passions are. But like, for example, my middle child, and I tell him all the time, he is the nerdiest, kind of socially awkward, skinny kid that you could picture, with the Coke bottle thick glasses, like ideally IT kind of guy. And he's the first of the first 3 kids that has said, he actually came to me with his hunting safety license done that he did through Young Men's, and said, "Hey, can you put me in for the hunts this year?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's
Like,
good.
that's cool,
Yeah. And that
and
you want that as a dad. You want your kid invested, right? Like I've had one of my daughters say, "Dad, I want to go sheep hunting," but she's mentioned it like twice.
mm,
If you're going to kill a sheep, you got to want it. And I mean,
yeah.
really want it. You got to train for it. You got to mentally prepare. You got to load a pack. You got to know how much food you're going to bring. And that's just to be able to move in the country the sheep are. So, like, it's good your kid did that because I want to see some investment. I want to see some skin in the game instead of just saying, oh, yeah, sure, we could go moose hunting maybe and ride around in Dad's Super Cub and have a fairly easy moose hunt. I want you to want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that, I was just saying that I know nothing about what Brody talks about when he tells me about how he takes apart computers and puts them together and he builds video game. He doesn't just play video games. He actually builds the video games and then goes back through and plays. Like, he's that kind of guy. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I'm present when he is talking to me about it. Just like you're saying, you're watching the videos with your son about basketball, and maybe you're not super passionate about basketball, but you're invested in what he cares about, and whether or not he turns out to be the mighty hunter, you care about what he cares about. And I think that goes a long way for kids, rather than trying to force them into things that we want them to do. Definitely encouraging them, when they're doing things that they want to do. So I think that's really awesome. And it's probably, I don't know, a little bit more difficult up in Alaska. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm sure you don't have neighborhoods full of kids like here in Utah, where we've got kids of all ages running around all the time, doing things, running around with scooters and all that. I'm sure it's not quite like that up in Alaska.
No, I mean, there's a few friends my kids have. I try and, I guess, pick their friends, because there's a lot of parents or single parents who don't have good kids, who aren't good parents, and I don't want my kids surrounded by those loser kids. And I'm sorry, that's just how my dad was. And I said, "You're not going to pick my friends," and he said, "Watch me." And it's a good thing he picked my friends, because you are still, as a grown person, you are the cumulative of the 5 people you hang around with, and it's the same when you're a child. But you're just so easily manipulated that most of my kids just kind of hang out with their siblings. Pretty tight wolf pack dynamic, and we live in a really rural place, so that is a downside of living in the bush. There's not just an endless supply of kids. There's not
a downside of living up in Alaska.
He's not on a football team. He's just.
I could.
That's it.
I could see that. Sorry, what were you saying? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, you're good. I was just saying that's just one of the hard parts about it. There's not a whole lot of personal interaction or extracurricular things, but the plus side of that is you don't have a bunch of outside influence to manipulate your kids into a bad way, So it's kind of a fine line. You don't want to raise them to be the weird homeschool kid, but you want them protected from all the other bad outside influence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can agree. And that's the other thing too, of, being homeschooled. That's a whole nother trial that you guys have taken on. Cause that's, man, I didn't realize you guys homeschooled. So that's a whole nother thing. You've got 6 kids.
We don't.
You're home. Oh, you're not. Okay.
We don't. We tried it in COVID, because it's like, oh, there's a lot of LDS people that homeschool their kids. I hate all the liberal teachers and how liberal schools are. Like, you put a frickin' kitty litter box in the corner for, what's his face's daughter, because she's going to show up to be a cat. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Our school's not that, like, progressive. They just don't teach kids anything. And so I would go down there and I would tell them, like, you need to fail my kid. My kid doesn't know anything, and you're giving him a straight A. And they said, well, that's not good for their confidence. And I said, okay, well, when they go to college, are they just going to get a free pass because they don't know how to write anything? And they said, well, not really. I said, that's my problem. You're not preparing my kid. And then when COVID happened, we said, well, this can't be that hard. And I'm horrible, and my wife's just as bad. We just don't have the patience, and my kids don't have the attention span to delineate what's playtime and what's school time. Because if we're in the house, I can see my toys. Why can't I go play with my toys? That was a stressful time. So now they're just in a private Christian school. Not an LDS school, just a private, non-denominational Christian school. But it's kind of like homeschool. They're just self-paced workbooks. And this older couple, they're amazing with my kids, and they're super patient. And it really helps my kids. And they've academically excelled much more so than the public school.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. And I don't know how big of a population of LDS people there are up in Alaska, but for people that don't know, I mean, LDS it's a Christian denomination, if you want to put it simply that way. And so, having a private Christian school or private school in general, where you have a little bit more say in how things are going there at the school, and a better relationship with the teachers and the staff, that's definitely something that can be really important. So it's good that you guys found that resource for your kids as well.
Yeah, I think so. We were a little worried, but yeah, maybe it won't meet every criteria of like our church or different things. But yeah, I get asked people all the time, are Mormons Christian? I said, well, it's Jesus Christ the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's literally in the name. So if we weren't Christians, we probably wouldn't put Jesus' name in the title of the church. But yeah, I just want good doctrine. I want my kids around good people. Most of the kids there have a mom and a dad who both live at home, and I'm a true believer in that. Nothing against single parents. I'm just talking from a statistical standpoint that
Right.
when I go on a hunting trip, my kids don't behave very well for mom. Probably the same for you, because they need a dad in the house. And that school has a lot of parents that care about their kids, and they're a good influence, and they're not throwing F-bombs around my 6 and 7-year-olds. And I don't mind paying for that. That's good money investment for me.
I hear you. I hear you. That's definitely, that's the other thing too. I feel like a lot of people don't recognize until they're already in it with having kids, but kids are an investment, whether it's your time or your money or both. If you want your kids to turn out to be good contributors to society or even changers to the community to keep things for the better, that's definitely an investment. Again, between your time and money, whether that's keeping them eating healthy or the activities that they're involved in, from dance to basketball to whatever it may be. Nothing's really cheap, and definitely a lot of time commitment as well. So again, awesome that you guys are finding those resources. And again, the big thing too, that you're taking on a responsibility of these 6 children that maybe not biologically yours, but you chose to have those kids in your life because, I mean, at this point, they are your kids, right? And so that's something that you and your wife have done that is a huge deal. And I've appreciated, again, whenever I see you talk about that, uh, it's something that I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to do or wouldn't be willing to do, because it does change your lifestyle. And for you to take that on after having that dream of being up in Alaska and just hunting your guts out all the time, that's a huge deal. So with that, I guess talk to us a little bit here about being up in Alaska. How often do you hunt? What do you prefer to hunt, and why? I guess.
I really don't spend a whole lot of nights in a tent, maybe 20 a year or something like that. I feel like a lot of guys, it's like dick measure, like, oh, I spend 100 nights a year in a tent. Like, to me, that sounds awful. I'd rather sleep next to a beautiful wife in my bed than sleep in a tent with my buddies. I do a lot of flying, scouting, looking at different areas. Alaska has like tons and tons of area that just has no animals. It's just dead zone. There's not feed. There's not good cover. There's just not animals there. Maybe too many predators, things like that. And then there's little pockets where at this couple weeks of the season, this place is where the moose rut. They like to winter over here. They like to shed over here. And so it's kind of a dynamic where they move, just like an elk herd would. They don't stay in the same spot. They calve in different spots and different things. I don't spend a ton of time hunting. I spend a lot of time scouting, a lot of time outside picking up sheds. I trap a lot, so I see the winter patterns of the animals and I have a pretty good idea based on the snow. And you can see animals pretty well in the winter, the population counts. I'm kind of my own biologist doing my own investigation of survey of like what's in the area, how big the bulls are, what the wolf packs are like, spring bear hunting. Overall, Alaska is not really difficult. It's technical hunting like deer and elk, way more difficult. But Alaska's weather is horrendous, and the logistics of getting you and all your stuff to this location and then walking around really uneven, soft ground with no roads, no trails, and no hard ground is really the hard part.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess how many moose are you allowed to hunt a year or kill in a year?
I mean, mostly just one bull. There's other areas you can shoot a cow. I don't know of any areas in Alaska you can shoot multiple bulls, but yeah, there's some areas that are overpopulated with moose that you can shoot a bull and a cow or a couple cows in some areas, but pretty much it's just one bull mostly per person.
Gotcha. Which, I mean, the bulls up in Alaska, we get Shiras moose down here in Utah, and they're big, right? But the ones up in Alaska are a whole nother ballgame. Which it was hilarious seeing that parody that you did of the bearded butchers when they were doing the whitetail hindquarter. That was hilarious, because you're not a small guy, and for you to have to like leverage that hind quarter to flip it over, whereas they were just grabbing that hind quarter of the whitetail and flipping it with one hand. That was freaking awesome. That was gold. So how much meat do you usually get off of a bull when you kill a bull in a year?
Well, that hindquarter is about 120 pounds on the bone. 120 to 130 is pretty average for us. And finish, like going into the freezer for a moose, you probably about 500, maybe a little more. You
Wow.
know, it's about double what you get off a big bull elk. And I tell people, if you took a 300 to 330 bull elk, like average size body, and put two of them side by side, that's pretty much an Alaska bull moose. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of animal.
That is. When you go out hunting, do you go out solo most of the time, or do you have people that go out with you to help you pack the meat back to the plane?
That's nice, but like I'm in a super cub, and so if I'm bringing someone that's just extra weight, that's more tent and gear and stuff they gotta have, and they don't really, and then most people want to go and they want to shoot one, and I've always said I'm a firm believer it's easier to find a spouse than it is a really solid hunting partner. So I have like my main moose hunting partner, and we usually go together. He's bow or nothing, and so that's a challenge for us. And I shot a moose in my bow with him in 23. But most of the time I'll go solo if he's not around. My wife and I really can't go much anymore. And it's really difficult. It's really stupid. But, I mean, I really don't have any options.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you're saying it's about 500 pounds in the freezer, so I imagine you're packing from wherever you kill the moose back to your plane. I mean, you're probably easily 700 to 800 pounds of. Is that an underestimate?
No, I like to weigh it. I'd say average, probably 800. Last couple bulls, been real big, have been right about 900, 904, 905. That's with antlers and all the meat on the bone. A lot of units, the meat has to come out on the bone. Even units where it doesn't have to, it's a lot easier just to carry a rear quarter on the bone. It's solid. It sits in your pack frame a lot better. You're still packing out 20 pounds of extra femur, but it just holds a lot better. I like to hang the moose and age it a little bit. And if you bone it out, you pretty much have to cut it right away. So you're looking at 800 to 900 pounds that you got to pack on your back to an extraction point, whether it be a river where you have a raft, a lake where you get a float plane, or the airstrip. Or in my case, I just hunt areas I know I can land. I've been before. And as I'm stalking to the moose, if the moose is 5 miles away, I'm looking at areas that I can land as I'm getting closer and closer. And I need to be able to land like within a mile, preferably half mile or less from the moose. Because packing those things, it's horrible.
I mean, even 100-pound pack, that's 8 to 9 trips, round trips. So that's
it's 9 trips, dude.
Yeah. So that's crazy. I honestly had never thought about it in that perspective before. Because I've smaller bull elk, you can pack those out in one trip if you have a buddy. May not be a happy trip, but you can get that out in one trip with someone else, or 2 trips by yourself. It's not the funnest, but that's possible. Man, 8 to 9 trips, even if it is half a mile, like that's crazy. That's a lot to. Sorry, it's just kind of sinking in for me. That is a lot. I mean, some people don't do that many.
That's why you have the mile as a guideline. I mean, if it's a huge bull, you go a little further and stuff like that. But a mile with an average of 100-pound pack, and you're doing 9 trips, that's a lot. And then you still have to go empty all the way back. Like, when you kill a bull, it's not like, hey, I'll be home for dinner tomorrow. It's like, I'll see you in 5 days, maybe, kind of thing. Like, it's a process. There are a lot of logistics, and I see all these guys like, oh, I called my so-and-so to help pack, and I had 6 trucks meet me at the trailhead to get a bull out. I don't have that option. Like, I have a few buddies with airplanes. I'll usually have to pick them up at some airstrip close by if I can find one, or some gravel bar, because they're not going to go into the really nasty spot I have, and I'm going to try and get my airplane as close as humanly possible to that moose safely, and then carry the meat the shortest distance I can to get it out fast away from bears and get it hung up and do it that way. But it's not like I can just have 6 dudes show up in pickups, meet me at this Onyx pen, and then we pack out this elk in one shot. Sure would be cool
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely didn't choose the easy route, that's for sure. But man, and then, I imagine you guys eat off of that throughout the entire year. That's a lot of good red meat there for you. Do you usually just go on one main hunt every year? Or do you have multiple different, like you do a moose? Do you have a sheep tag each year? How does Alaska work in that perspective?
So a lot of misinformation about Alaska. Everyone thinks you need a guide to hunt up there. The only thing you need a guide for, and that's a registered hunting guide or a next of kin relative, so like a brother, brother-in-law, parent, child, something like that, is for brown bear, grizzly bear, mountain goats, and Dall sheep. Everything else, muskox, bison, all that stuff's wide open. Some of that stuff's a draw. You can come up and over-the-counter moose hunt. But as a resident, I pay $94 for a hunting, fishing, and trapping license for the year, and I print all my tags off on my computer, and they're all free. So I'll plan a Dall sheep hunt every year. I'll print it off on my computer, and I'll fly somewhere. Like this year, I flew up to the Brooks Range, and I killed a sheep on the opener, and then I flew all the way back down. I kind of wrecked my airplane a little bit. I mean, I didn't wreck it. I just kind of dented it in the tail, flew it back to Anchorage, had it fixed, and then I flew down to Idaho to see my kids for a week. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get tags. That's the really cool part. When I look at guys in Utah or Colorado, Wyoming, like it's hard to get a tag, and that just seems absurd to me because you can't even just go hunt on a general tag. And Alaska has a lot of those opportunities, which is pretty unreal.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty cool. So you get a Dall sheep, and do you hunt a Dall sheep every year, or is it just moose is kind of the staple? And then what do you usually plan? I guess each year, what's kind of your schedule?
So pretty much caribou opens August 1st. That's kind of like we're kind of getting into fall time when August starts. Sheep is August 10th. I try to always plan a sheep hunt. You hardly get any meat off of sheep, and it's very physically difficult and demanding and hard, and the flying's challenging in the mountains and, pioneering new spots to land. But I do it more for the difficulty aspect instead of like, oh, I'm getting all this meat off it. Like a sheep is not a subsistence animal. A moose is going to gather way more meat and yield a whole bunch to sustain your family. But sheep usually, and then I might do some caribou hunts later August with my kids, and then September is usually all for moose. And then I still have a caribou tag, but I'm in Idaho right now, and it pretty much runs through the winter, and then do some fall brown bear every once in a while, and then get a couple whitetail tags down here, and then I put in for like really top end elk tags, because if I'm going to draw an elk tag, it's probably going to be in September, and it's going to be really hard to get me away from Alaska. So I want something like the Gila in New Mexico, or some really good Montana unit where I have some private land access that is going to be worth leaving Alaska in September for, because that's hard to do. When you have a pocket full of tags.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. That would be pretty difficult to do. If you had a pocket full of tags in Alaska. If people haven't been up there, I would say take a trip, whether it's a fishing trip or just going up to see Alaska. It's a whole different kind of beauty. And I only got to see a portion of it in Ketchikan. I can only imagine further north, and there's some other areas that I've heard of even more so. But it's gorgeous. I mean, it's a whole nother world. It seems like up there, and definitely a lot less people, which I appreciate personally, which is a big thing for me. Moving from the East Coast out west, I'm all about staying out here because of less people, and I can only imagine you feel the same way up in Alaska. So you've got your caribou, your moose, and your Dall sheep just about every year. Now, just kind of thinking of, you've mentioned landing spots, and that's something else that people don't necessarily think about a lot. You fly a float plane, or is a Super Cub with wheels?
Super Cub on wheels, the
Okay,
big Tundra tires, they're
gotcha.
like big balloons and 5 pounds of air in them.
Gotcha. So you have to have a hard landing spot. You can't just land it out on a lake or a creek or anything like that. So that's something that, sorry, one second. Remember I said kids just open the door whenever.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean, you can put floats on my Super Cub and
okay.
land on rivers and lakes. I've thought about it, but a lot of the air taxis and other guides and operators where I live, they're on floats, and so I'm trying to distance myself from those people and find spots to land on wheels. And floats are great for fishing, but for hunting, the animals are on land, and so I try and find small little pieces where I can stick an airplane on wheels.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. And why is it so, I guess, popular for people to have Cubs or the smaller planes? Why not a helicopter? That seems to be a little bit more, you can land in a lot better places, it seems like, with a helicopter. What's the draw towards the Super Cub versus the helicopter idea?
Well, Super Cub's the legal way to do it. Helicopters cannot be used in any fashion to. I mean, you couldn't even fly in, I think technically, maybe, and build a cabin with a helicopter and then go hunt out of it. Like any helicopter use whatsoever, flying in water, dropping off gear, shuttling out meat, pulling in hunters in and out, anything to do with a helicopter cannot be done. I've heard of horror stories where guys go with a guide. The guide will flip the Super Cub, and they're stuck out there. So the state troopers, or also the game wardens, they'll come in a helicopter and they'll take everything out. And the guy's got the moose rack and stuff. They won't even take the moose rack because
Wow.
that's a non-essential kind of thing necessarily. I don't know if that's true. I've just heard stories and rumors like that. But the Super Cub is the closest thing that you can get to a helicopter, pretty much. It's going to land the shortest. It's going to land unimproved, rough places, and it's going to do it over and over again. With the right operator operating the airplane, you can do some pretty amazing things. They only need, 300 feet to take off with a load. You can land at about 200, 300 is easy.
Wow.
So if you're a good stick on a Cub, you need a 100-yard stretch of ground.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. That doesn't seem terrible at all. But then again, you have to find those spots. So I guess, and the only reason I'm asking about helicopters is because I've got a buddy that his family owns some helicopter up in Wisconsin. They've got a helicopter practice or whatever you call it, where they train people and then they love flying their helicopters. And so it just kind of, I'd never ridden in a helicopter before, and how easily it is to land, how little of a space you need, which again, the Super Cub doesn't seem like a lot, 100 yards of football field. But why is it illegal up in Alaska? I've actually never heard that before.
I think it's just too easy. If you were sheep hunting, you could get dropped off on a tiny little knife edge pinnacle. You don't even need to land a helicopter. A good stick on a helicopter will take the skid right into the side of the mountain. You could jump off the skid with your pack. You could stay on a little ledge and shoot the world record Dall sheep, at 100 yards away if he's just hanging out and he's not bothered. And hike over there, and the helicopter picks you and the sheep up and slings you out of there in one load. I think they just determined that is just too unrealistic, and so they're going to make airplanes the most legal operation of transportation.
That's crazy. And you're right, someone would do that. Like, that thought wouldn't even cross my mind, but I could see people going to that extreme. So it's not that helicopters are illegal up there, it's that anything hunting related and helicopters, they just don't mix. You can't do hunting and helicopters.
Yeah, that, and just the cost to operate a helicopter is so much more. The hourly cost, the annual inspections, the parts, the maintenance, it's just really unfeasible to do that. A Super Cub, it's much cheaper operating cost, and there's just so many in Alaska.
Yeah.
Everyone flies Cubs up here. Everyone.
That's cool. That's like the Honda Civic of the lower 48.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, that's awesome. Man, I'm learning a ton here. I had no idea that was a thing, but that makes sense. So, again, sounds like you've got some awesome opportunities to hunt up there. You've got your pilot's license. When you go, I'm just trying to think of, going back to your moose hunt here. When you go out there solo, you've obviously done this quite a few times at this point. Your wife takes care of the whole household and everything. And I think most guys have that situation. Bless our wives for sticking around and taking the kids while we're gone, enjoying ourselves out in the mountains. But you get that 4 or 5 day pack out done. You bring the meat home. Do you process it all yourself?
Oh yeah, we do. And not to give my wife too much credit, like I get a week off to go moose hunting either with a buddy or myself, and then she gets a girlfriend and she goes moose hunting. So
Oh,
it's
sweet.
great finding a spouse that loves to hunt, but then guess who's stuck with 6 kids while everyone else is out moose hunting? Me. And so like I'm on the other side too. So I don't give her a whole lot of sympathy, like, oh, I'm stuck here while you're out moose hunting. It's like, don't worry, I was here just a little while ago. So she does that. And we're like 4 to 5 day pack, that would be extreme. That's if we shoot a moose a mile and a half away, and it's really soggy and swampy, and it's slow going, and the weather sucks. Usually, I'm trying to get a moose out in a day or two. You know,
Gotcha.
I'm trying to get it cooled down, out of the bears. I have a kind of a do-it-yourself cool room meat locker that's insulated. I can keep it down to like 34 degrees, and trying to get the moose to that as fast as possible. And then I'll hang it for, I hung a bull 3 weeks this year, and then I'll cut it up and we'll process it all at our house.
Awesome. That's cool. Do you get the kids involved in that?
They are very, very good. Just assembly line. Like me and mom will usually take it off the bone, and then my other 2 oldest girls can like trim all the fats and the tissue and stuff off. So we just have a plain piece of meat and cut it into steaks. And then I have other kids running I have 2 of those chamber vac sealers, and I'll run those back to back. And we just chamber seal everything. We chamber seal all the burger, all the steaks and everything. And then my kids put it in the freezer. And yeah, it's a cool process. It's not like a question if you're going to help. Like, you're going to eat food here, you're going to put in the work, you know?
Love it.
But they like it. They
Yeah.
get a bag of lollipops, everyone gets a sucker, put on Katy Perry, and you just go to town, start cutting. You know?
Love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So speaking of processing, again, an Alaska moose hunt, that sounds awesome. I'm going to have to look more into that. I'd love to. I do not envy living up there because I do know the work, at least about the work that goes into living in Alaska. So I'm not one of those guys that's like, I wish I could live up there. But there are some trips that I have that I'd love to go up there and do, such as a moose hunt, etc. And those will in the future. I'll be up there and we'll have to figure all that out. But with the bear hunts, so we've talked about Dall, sheep, caribou, moose, and then you mentioned spring bear. Where did you get this idea of keeping the bones, the dick bones, from bears? Like where did that come from?
It wasn't even a bear thing. I kill a lot of wolves in the winter
Okay.
with hunting and trapping, and I had 3 or 4, and a buddy's skin went out, and he never skinned anything, so I told him just to leave a lot of the cartilage on the ears, and I can flesh all that off later. And so he did. We leave the feet in it, and I just roll it up. I put it in the garbage bag, and I put it in the freezer. And then the next section of bad weather, I say, hey, it's going to be snow in the next 2 days. I won't be trapping. I'll pull the wolf out, let it thaw out, and then I'll finish, putting it up for taxidermy work. And I sell a lot of furs to taxidermists for life-size mounts and stuff on these wolves. Well, I had it on the fleshing board on the beam with the draw knife, and I'm pushing all the fat and the extra meat off the hide so I can get the salt to penetrate the hide for taxidermy prep. And I get to like the junk and I feel something hard, like that's weird. And I knew bears had a baculum, which is the technical term for a dick bone. And I just pulled it out, and I've told this story probably on every single podcast. And I just made a joke, like a parody. I said, if one of you sick bastards on my Instagram wants to buy this, I'll take bids for the next 24 hours. And a buddy at Fairbanks, actually shout out to Gus Carr, bid that thing up to $105. And so just me being me, first take, I went out into my back shed, and I had like 14 dead wolves just stacked in there I needed to get rid of, just wolf bodies. And I said, hey, I'm not gay, but $100 is $100. And if you guys need a dick, I'll go back and whack one of these dicks off right now and get you a dick bone. And so it just kind of turned into a thing. I got shirts now. I got sweatshirts through Elite Hunt Club, which is a business I'm partnered in. And they sell shirts and, sweatshirts and different things. And I go to the expo there in Salt Lake, even though I hate going to the expo because there's so many people and it's exhausting.
Oh, dude,
I'll just be walking down the road and be like, hey, Dick Bone, and that's kind of like a handle. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a funny story. I get made fun of by some guys, and I'm just like, dude, if you could sell $3,000 worth of dicks, you would too. So, sold quite a bit of money just selling dick bones. People want them as a novelty, as a gag gift, or just because. Some people collect them, and yeah, it's kind of turned into a thing, I guess.
That's hilarious. So is it? So it's a. I thought it was a bear thing. I didn't realize it was the wolf. So you've got. So there's wolves and bears. Are there other animals? Is it all a predator thing, or is it? Where
Oh
else do you get
yeah.
these from?
Yeah, no ungulates will have them, so like deer, elk, and moose won't. But any mustelids, so like weasel, ermine, wolverines, coons have a big one and makes a 90 at the end, like a hook. And bears, wolves, the biggest one is a usik off a walrus, and it's like I could send you a picture of that, dude. It's like straight up like the size of your forearm. It's like you could kill a human with it. And yeah, there's a lot of them, and it just kind of turned into a thing and people are into it.
All right, that's hilarious, man.
Pretty
What a
weird
what
way
a
to make a
find.
buck. And I don't do it. I don't do it a lot.
Yeah,
Um, but I sling a little dick here and there, and just it is what it is.
man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So anyone out there wanting a dick bone, definitely reach out to Adam. He will take care of you and make sure you've got the best dick bones around from Alaska. That
Just
is that is
you want some dick, just slide into my DMs.
it's really
Hit it
funny.
up.
So my buddy Jake Arvold, he said he's spoken to you a couple times on Instagram, but he
Not the super rich dude.
yeah, over at First Form.
Yeah, he's in way too good a shape. So yeah, whatever.
He's got that farm boy strength, man. I'm telling you. But so we were talking about it when I went out to Wisconsin to go hunt some whitetails with him this I guess a month ago, and he was saying because I told him that I found out that you were LDS, and he had found out I was LDS about 2 years into our friendship, and he was like, I would have never guessed, but he was like, he's kind of your kind of Mormon. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? He was like, well, he's not like buttoned up with a tie, and he swears every once in a while, and he slings, dick bones and like, yep, that's
I swear a lot more than every once in a while, dude. I can go rounds with Jack Sparrow, but I I'm a convert to the church, so maybe that's my excuse or whatever. But I said this on Nate's podcast too. Man, there's just kind of a lot of weird Mormons. My wife calls them Utah Mormons. I don't know if you know that term. I was just down there in Salt Lake, and yeah, I mean, all the boys are wearing like skinny sweatpants and high top sneakers, and like the faux hawk bitch bangs and the flat bill turned up sideways like this.
mm-hmm.
Um, and the girls are, I don't even know. It's fake hair, fake tits, fake nails, fake eyes, fake lips, fake ass. I mean, everything's injected. I mean, I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
It's all down there, and it's kind of just like weird keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like everyone's just trying to fit in. I just want to do my own thing, but yeah, I don't know. There's some LDS people that are really cool that I get along with, and then there's some that are just kind of like dweebs that I don't necessarily like want to hang out with. They're nice people. We go to church. I'll converse with them. So maybe that's kind of what Jake's leaning into, and I think that's good. Instead of me trying to play like a perfect little church boy on Instagram, I've had some people actually go and get baptized or come back to the church because they're like, hey, I don't need to be a perfect soul. I can drop a few F-bombs here and there. I can grab my wife's ass in an Instagram story and show real life, because you can still hold a temple recommend if you do that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
You can still drink excessive amounts of caffeine and pass a temple recommend interview. I will swear to that,
They don't ask you how many energy drinks you've had.
Thank goodness, dude. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's really true, and I share a scripture every Sunday, but I was raised in North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg, and I feel like that type of Mormon or LDS is what I grew up with, and when I came out here, I agree, it's very like cookie cutter, almost like when you see a neighborhood pop up, all the houses look the same. It's very much like that in a lot of places here in Utah. And if it's cool for people that are from here, whatever. I'm not trying to pick on you necessarily, but I grew up around dudes that were in special forces, always had beards, were gone for extended periods of time, and they took scouts to a whole nother level than just what was in the handbook. And that was the kind of Mormon and LDS that I was raised as, and more accepting and not judgmental in that kind of way. And so when I came out here and experienced that, I'm like, well, I'm going to find the Mormons out here that are more like me, and I'm going to hang out with those people rather than the perfect blonde hair, blue eyed people that are out here in the valley. So I agree with you. It's something that, and it's cool to hear that you've had that experience, that people have either come back to the church or been baptized or even are interested in knowing a little bit more, just because they know you are not this perfect, buttoned up, pretending to be perfect anyway, individual. You're someone that's real and relatable. And so that's really cool as well. So I have
Well,
to ask.
it's
Oh,
good
go ahead.
missionary work, dude. It's good missionary work. Look
Mm-hmm.
at your buddy Jake. I mean, there's a thought in my mind that he could come investigate. You said, no, I was kind of thinking about this, and maybe I want to look more into the church. And you're like, well, just so you know, I got some missionaries in my phone. I could send out a text, and, I could be there and do a missionary lesson. I'd love to bear my testimony to them. And, I could even send them a free Book of Mormon, because luckily my tithing covers that, I'm pretty sure. And I feel like being you and me reaches a different caliber of people versus the people your missionaries are going to get, or your everyday typical Utah Mormon, or every time just other people at church. You want to hit a different demographic. You can still be a disciple of Christ and not be your cookie cutter Mormon that looks perfect on the outside, but you're a wife beater on the inside or whatever. You're a total narcissist, dick to your kids and abusing them and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Just I'm me and that's it. Take it or leave it. And I don't really care, and I'll still sleep okay at night if you don't like me. There's a big list of people that do not like me.
Exactly. No, I definitely hear you on that. And it's funny to me, you look back on who Jesus picked to be his 12 disciples, right? 12 apostles. And they were fishermen. They were roughnecks, pretty much. They were the roughnecks of that time frame, and they enjoyed being outdoors. They worked hard. They, and there's little things that I love. I know it's kind of been a joke that's been going around lately, but where, John was joking that he was the fastest, and they had those little competitions. They weren't these perfect individuals. Jesus didn't go out and pick the Pharisees, for example. He picked people that enjoyed being outdoors, people that enjoyed being amongst the people, being who they were, and had a few insecurities, and were also not just these perfectly buttoned up individuals. And that's something that I definitely can relate to, and I know a lot of people can. Because you don't want to feel like you're constantly being judged, and that you have to pretend to be something that you're not. So no, I agree with you on that. It's definitely helpful to even spark conversation. And then when people do find out that you're LDS, they're like, oh, I had this picture of what an LDS person was. And you're like, well, here I am. What do you want to know? So it's definitely.
I just had a buddy. I'm going hunting with him in South Dakota here next week. And I told him I was in Salt Lake down there, and he's like, oh, Mormonville. I said, yeah, my kind. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, I'm LDS. He's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, you're effing not. And I'm like, no, dude, I really am. He's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I am serious. I am a disciple of Christ and a Latter-day Saint. Just, like, I'm even wearing the special underwear. Like, I have a temple recommend. Like, 100%, I'm sealed to my family for all time and eternity. And he just couldn't believe it. And so I don't think I play the cookie cutter narrative, but maybe that's good. Yeah. It's a different demographic of people and shows people you don't need to be a perfect church going preppy boy with bitch bangs to be a member of the church and follow Christ.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, I think a dead giveaway is that you have 6 kids, man. I think that you drink energy drinks and you have 6 kids.
That was not by design. I wanted to start with like 1 kid in foster care, and God said, here's 5, you'll figure it out. And it's like, okay, I guess we're gonna.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so cool. So what are some things that I guess people, I don't know, what's something we haven't discussed that maybe I don't know about you that has been interesting that people want to know more about you, or even a pointer that you would give to somebody if they're wanting to go up to Alaska and go on their first, whether it be moose hunt, caribou hunt, or whatever?
Man, I don't know. I've done so many podcasts. I feel like I've pretty much opened up every door there is at family and past and hunting and airplanes. Man, the biggest piece of advice I'd give people in hunting is don't wait. Like the Alaska thing, you think you're the only guy that wants to go hunt moose. I get messages weekly about where can I go do it yourself moose, and I only have a budget of $5,000. I'm like, you need to double it. Like you need to plan at least 10 grand a guy to do it yourself fly out moose hunt. There's accessible spots from the road in Alaska, but everyone is accessing from those spots. So it's going to be like hunting Colorado third season elk, and there's going to be a sea of orange. You're going to see people in four-wheelers and moose buggies all over if you're hunting off the road. So you want to fly out. Where you fly out determines a lot based on the season, the genetics. I tell people, if you're looking at a game management area, look at the unit, talk to biologists, talk about the moose population, find out what outfitter guides out of said unit. You can look all that stuff up online and look at his pictures. They're trying to sell a service, so they're going to show you the best of the best, but that's going to show you what top caliber animals are in that area. And that kind of helps you narrow down your search. But then ultimately you're relying on the pilot. You have to say, this guy's not going to kill me. I'm going to pay him a bunch of money, and all he's doing is dropping me off on this spot. And I hope he's going to pick me up. And usually they do. You hear horror stories about guys who don't get picked up and stuff. Usually it's due to weather and things, but it's an adventure. You know, that's why it's so difficult. And when you finally get to moose camp, even for me, with my own airplane, it's just like, take a deep breath, look around. There's nothing there. There's no sound. And all you have to do now is hunt. That's the easy part, is hunting. It's getting everything there and getting it set up and all your gear and the weather and everything like that makes it difficult. So I would not delay. I would start researching. Alaska is getting busier and busier. And I definitely promote that through Stuck in the Rut, our YouTube channels. Elite Hunt Club is a business I'm partnered in where, you know, we buy hunts from outfitters and we raffle them off. We just finished an Alaska brown bear hunt for next fall. It's a fully guided hunt because we talked earlier, you need the guide. So I'm definitely promoting that a little bit through Alaska. The thing that's going to keep Alaska small is there's only so many transportation, air taxi, transporter people with boats that do transporting. And so the demand's always going to be high, but there's not a giant pool of just people with a pickup truck to take you like there is an outfitter in the lower 48. So that's going to drive the price up. So it's going to become a rich man's game, and the do-it-yourself moose hunting, caribou, all that stuff is just getting more and more expensive.
Gotcha. I think those are definitely really good pointers. And I love something that you said at the beginning when we were talking about you met your wife, you told her you wanted to get a super cub and before you got a house, and you just made a really good point of saying, you know, you can pay rent later, but you can't always hunt when you're in your 60s and 70s and not in the places that you want to go. And I think that rings true to a lot of people. And I know people out east that listen to this podcast, maybe a big Rocky Mountain elk hunt is your dream hunt. And people out west, maybe it's going up to Alaska. Maybe it's, you know, whatever it is, maybe it's going out to Hawaii and doing stuff out in Hawaii or somewhere outside of the Rocky Mountains. Whatever it is, you know, Adam said it really good here. Just go and do your research and get after it as soon as possible, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow, and you're definitely not guaranteed health in your later years. So, you know, you mentioned hitting middle age at 35. I mean, you're not wrong if you go by the average lifespan of a male human in the United States. Unfortunately, 35, 36 is middle age. So that's a good point you made.
Yeah, pretty much. We just try and live by that lifestyle. My wife always wanted to do a polar bear and a muskox, and I booked the polar bear and the muskox for her in the Northwest Territories this next spring. It's a pile of money. It's like more than a down payment on a nice house. But if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? And she's never going to spend the money herself, so I just bought one. And I said, you know, we'll figure it out. I'll make payments, and I've been making payments for like a year and a half, and I'm still not paid off. But if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? So you just got to pull the trigger and go for it.
Exactly. Now, polar bear, that is, you really did marry a unicorn, man. You've got a wife that wants to chase polar bears.
She doesn't spend any money, doesn't wear makeup. But yeah, when it comes to hunts, she's got expensive taste. Polar bear, muskox, and then a mountain lion with her bow. And I think she's going to do a cat with her bow either next month or January with a friend. She's got dogs. And then she might get the polar bear and muskox in March. She might get like her top 3 bucket list animals all within a few months of each other. We'll
Wow.
see.
That's amazing. And honestly, again, guys that aren't picking up what Adam's putting down here, take care of your wife. Make sure that you have that kind of relationship that, like you mentioned, she may not want to go spend the money. My wife is the same way. I'm the spender, she's the saver. Make sure that she is taken care of, whether it's in your case, you've got a wife that you guys share passions and she's got her bucket list hunts that you are making sure happen for her. But also, if you have a wife that's into something else, guys, make sure she's taken care of, because that's just going to make things better for whenever you want to get out and do your hunting. So whether that's trade-offs, like what you're saying, you go out for a week of moose hunting and then your wife goes out for a week, whatever it is. But guys, definitely make sure that your kids and your wife are taken care of throughout the year, so that you can get out there whenever you have your hunts come up that you want to go do. That's definitely something that's a very, very important deal. So you're not sitting in camp complaining about how your wife and all these things are going wrong at home while you are out there trying to enjoy a hunt. Don't be that guy.
That's the worst.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you'd like to bring up? I know you've been a guest on a lot of podcasts, but anything else that maybe you wanted to hit on?
No, I try to. My Instagram's Grenda89. I try to be. I don't respond if you send me a smiley face emoji, because that's like 1,000 a week, and that's retarded. But if you want to actually write words in the human language and like have a question or something, I'll respond to you. I try to be pretty interactive with people on Instagram, and if people want to check out some of the hunts we do, it's on YouTube, Stuck in the Rut. I know a lot of people down in Lower 48 Utah follow us and stuff like that, but appreciate the support there. And yeah, just try and keep it real. Try to be honest. Instagram's so fake. It's like the porn of the real world. Everyone puts on their best front and they're acting, and I just try and show like the pain, the hurt, the downside, the misses, the sucky parts of Alaska. Like I don't just have a butcher I can drop a moose off to and go fill a different tag. I just try and be realistic and show people the same person I am in person as I do on the computer, because there's so many fake people out there, and it's just, if we're going to spend any amount of time on this, I might as well do it legit instead of trying to fake people out. Look how cool I am and look what I can do. I hate that about Instagram. But at the end of the day, it's all fake. None of it matters. The money doesn't matter. Your wife and kids, that's the only stuff that really matters to me.
Exactly. No, I definitely appreciate that as well. There's a lot of humor. You definitely find humor in the suffering as well, and the things that you've got going on up there. But I definitely appreciate that it's not very edited and all of that stuff that you put out there. I think a lot of people, obviously, you've got a lot of followers on there as well that appreciate the same. They follow along in your story because they want to know that someone like yourself that is living maybe their dream of being up in Alaska, it's not all rainbows and roses, right? You're out there and you're living through the thick of it. You've got an amazing wife by your side that's doing the same thing, and you're making things happen, not waiting for them to come to you. I think all of that is definitely a big reason why people, I know that's why I came, other than the DICKBONE thing, that's why I started following you as well. Cause you definitely have a good story that you're up there telling, and again, living a lot of people's dreams. So that is amazing. I think that's it, man. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know you're spending some family time right now in North Idaho, but anyone out there that wants to reach out to Adam, again, not sending hieroglyphs, but actually sending English language to him, like he said, definitely go reach out to him over on Instagram. I'll leave the links down below where you can find Adam and what he's got going on. And then probably figure out what's going on with this polar bear hunt here in a couple months and how that goes for his wife. Another thing too that I'd say now is this, I'm trying to remember, is it your brother? Who was it that almost got killed by that huge brown bear?
That was my youngest brother-in-law, Trevor, and my wife almost got eaten by that one.
So that was your wife?
Yep, she was there. She's got some PTSD because of that, and now she wants to take her Hoyt, and I think she's doing a compound. She might do a recurve, wants to shoot the polar bear with a bow. So maybe that'll fix her. Yeah, maybe that'll fix her mentally. But I tell people I love the slogan when you're talking about bears. And they say if it's black, fight back for a black bear. If it's brown, just lay down, because usually a brown bear will stop once the threat's deterred. And if it's white, you just say goodnight. Like there's no chance.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, after hearing all those things, she's like, I have a bunch of bear trauma and almost got eaten by a 10'4" brown bear on the Alaska Peninsula, but let's go shoot a polar bear with a bow. So, and
and
whatever you want.
I was going to wrap it up there, but now I've got to ask, how do you have PTSD? Because usually PTSD makes you not want to go do those things again. So she went the opposite way, and now she's wanting to take a lesser weapon to hunt a bigger animal that is known to actively hunt human beings. And for people that don't know, polar bears are one of the only predators out there that actively search out humans to eat. They hunt humans. So help me understand that. Maybe you don't even understand it, but help me understand how that's PTSD related.
I said at the beginning, dude, she's a freaking unicorn. And that means she's a weirdo, right? So she's always had this thing with predators and this fetish with predators. And, knowing that about polar bears to an alpha female, it draws you to them. So even with this PTSD, I don't think she's mentally strong enough that she still wants to pursue that, even though she's almost been killed by a bear. That being said, she wants me there with a .458 elephant gun standing right over her shoulder with the camera in one hand and the gun in the other. So I will be there if stuff gets wild. But it's really, from what I've heard, it's really mellow 99% of the time. It's kind of like bush flying. Like it's super boring, everything's great, and then there's like 1% of the time it's like sheer terror and you're freaking out and all hell breaks loose. And so yeah, kind of a little bit of me kind of wants to see some of that. Like maybe it's going to get wild. Maybe we're going to have a story. But I'm looking forward to it because I've never done a guided hunt. I've always been a do-it-yourself guy. I'm just looking forward to the experience. You're going to eat whale. You're going to eat seal oil. You're going to ride around on snow machines with dog teams. And, you're going to be looking for seals and bears and tracking polar bears. I mean, just, it's cool, right? I mean, it's very, very, very exciting and challenging and super, super cold. And I'm sure we're going to have some maintenance issues with snow machines breaking down. So I'm really looking forward to the whole experience, and it's going to be a long hunt. It's probably 2 to 3 days to get there, 2 to 3 days to get back, and each hunt is a 10-day hunt. So polar bear, then muskox. So probably at the minimum 10 to 14 days, could be over 3 weeks.
Wow.
Long time.
That is
a
very long time. So for people that don't know what we're talking for people that don't know what we're talking about the brown bear, so a 10'4", so just picture a basketball hoop and add 4 inches to that as far as height, and a massive brown bear that the head's probably bigger than 2 basketballs. You shoot it and your gun freezes on you because it's freezing outside and you can't get a second shot, and you watch this thing close the distance to you and you have nothing to really be able to help you out other than a pistol. That's really a Cliff Notes version of what happened. I can't imagine the actual terror in that moment when the bear recognized your wife and your brother-in-law on that hillside and started coming at them as he was huffing and puffing and spitting up blood. I can't imagine being there, but I could tell just in the video itself, I would not want to be in that position. And that's what we're referring to. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go and check out on their YouTube channel the video of that brown bear hunt where Adam almost became a single dad. And I mean that was insane, and it raises again just some questions for people that do go out and hunt in adverse conditions, and you build a custom rifle that has very tight tolerances, which is what I understand kind of happened in that situation. Where the chamber.
Well, there was a primer. The primer was kind of wet, and there was some moisture. And if you get moisture in a case, you can get some case expansion. And there was too much pressure. I had the load loaded too hot, which had never been a problem. Never blown primers. It's the first time it ever happened. The spent primer blew out, and it got stuck in the action, and the action lugs wouldn't fully engage, so it wouldn't close the bolt. The bolt won't close. The gun won't go off. So that was the problem.
Yeah.
And hindsight's 2020. I was able to fix it within seconds after I landed my cub on the beach the next day. But in the heat of the moment, when stuff's going down, it's like, oh, well, throw the gun down, grab the pistol, and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people get buck fever. I mean, imagine having, again, a wounded bear that's 10'4" coming down the hillside at you. I wouldn't be able to fix that in 6 seconds either. I don't think that's
Yeah.
that's insane. So guys, go check out that video. And then of course their channel. They've got an amazing channel over there on YouTube. I'll leave all those links down below where you can find Adam, his family. And again, follow along in this story as they go, his wife goes out on these bucket list hunts over the next couple months. And we'll see what ends up happening out there on their journey. So with that, Adam, is there anything else you want to leave with the people listening?
No, I'm good, man. I just appreciate you having me on, and it was good to kind of meet you virtually over the computer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And guys, again, if you want a DICKBONE or anything else that he sells as far as shirts, or you want to get in on these raffles for the hunts or anything like that, reach out to Adam, go follow along on his page, get the information over there, and make those dream hunts happen as soon as possible. Because again, you never know what's going to happen in the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Go ahead and get after those dreams that you've got going on, just like Adam's been telling you here. So, and that's coming from a guy that, again, basically proposed to his wife that he's going to be buying a Super Cub before a house, and she's cool with it. It probably has something to do with the fact that she's a ginger and doesn't have a soul. But all of that to be said, guys, you have a fantastic rest of your day. Adam, thank you so much for your time. And get out, live your life, and love it. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Adam. He's just an amazing human being, absolutely loves his family, loves getting out there and enjoying life to the fullest in Alaska, traveling, flying, hunting, 1,000-pound moose, and more. Go check out the giveaway, guys. If you want to get entered, make sure that you get entered in to win the Hoyt Alpha X33 Gray Riser, Black Limbs, Dialed Arxos sight, Ghost Sticks 2.0, ABB strings, the Hoyt factory strings that were never shot. So 2 sets of strings, a quiver, a dozen arrows from Wild Arrow, an Epsilon Hamsky Epsilon rest, all of that included. Go check it out. Subscribe to the channel if you like this. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. And I look forward to 2025 with you guys. It's going to be an awesome year. Some changes coming to the channel. New podcast starting as well, which I'll tell you more about later as we get into the year. Hope you have a great one and get out, live your life, and love it.